Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into clinical strategies to protect yourself and your relationship. Look, if you've been scouring the internet for answers about your partner, you've probably been absolutely bombarded with advice telling you to just run, block, and exile them, right? Well, today, we're cutting right through all that internet noise. We're looking directly at the clinical reality to give you practical, grounded strategies that actually work. We're starting from a place of profound empathy here because you've likely been there wide awake at 2 a.m., desperately Googling for answers while lying right next to someone who either can't or just won't hear your pain. You've tried explaining, you've tried crying, accommodating, and yet nothing changes. Let me just say your pain is completely valid and you absolutely deserve protection. But the word narcissist carries some serious weight, and how you use it really determines whether your well-being actually has a fighting chance. So here's a pretty fascinating reality check. Genuine narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, is actually incredibly rare. Depending on the study you look at, it only affects about 1 to 6% of the population. We're not talking about a bad mood or a tough week. It is a fixed, rigid pattern of relating to the entire world. But man, the internet has turned this serious clinical diagnosis into literally the most overused word in relationship psychology, and that is causing a massive roadblock for couples trying to heal. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. 1, the overused narcissist label. 2, NPD versus protector strategies. 3, boundaries for genuine NPD. 4, boundaries for protector strategies. 5, why boundaries feel impossible. And 6, stay, leave, or co-parent. Section 1, the overused narcissist label. Why certainty kills repair. You know, social media algorithms are constantly validating our pain by labeling our partners as toxic. And hey, it feels really good to be validated, doesn't it? But when we just accept this fixed story, it totally blinds us to the actual desperate system happening between two people. When you slap a label on someone, they immediately defend themselves. Suddenly you're in a courtroom with a perpetrator and a victim, but what clinicians actually see most of the time isn't a villain and a victim. It's really just two terrified people caught in this painful waltz of pain, throwing emotional boomerangs at each other just to survive. Section 2, NPD versus protector strategies, spotting the difference. Now we're at a critical fork in the road. We have to look at genuine NPD, which involves structural grandiosity, consistent exploitation, and gaslighting versus protector strategies, which look more like biological panic, eye rolling, and a frantic attempt to secure attachment. The contrast here is just stark. A true narcissist has this fixed, punishing superiority. Their empathy is entirely performative. But on the flip side, a partner using protector strategies, that eye-rolling or cold detachment, is an arrogance. It's a person silently screaming from deep shame or panic, just desperately trying not to be exposed as inadequate. So the boundaries you set have to change drastically depending on which reality you're actually dealing with. Section 3, boundaries for genuine NPD, building a defensive wall. All right, so if you and a qualified clinician have confirmed that you're dealing with pervasive, genuine NPD, your boundaries need to be a rigid defensive wall. It's absolutely critical to follow these exact non-negotiable steps to survive. First, accept it's for you. The boundary is to protect your reality, not to change them. Second, make it behavioral. Don't ask for emotional attunement they literally cannot provide. Instead, ask for observable behavior, like if you yell, "I leave the room." Third, remove the audience because they thrive on a stage. 4, do not jade. 5th, build external support with trusted friends. And 6th, document everything with date and timestamps to protect yourself against the slow erosion of your own reality. Let's zoom in on step 4 for a second, because this is an absolute lifesaver, JADE. That stands for never justify, argue, defend, or explain. The very second you try to justify your boundary, you are opening up a negotiation with a masterful negotiator. With genuine NPD, you don't explain why name calling hurts, and you definitely don't give a historical review of their past mistakes. You simply state the boundary, state the consequence, and then you stop talking. Silence is your absolute strongest shield here. Section 4, boundaries for protector strategies, firm and flexible. But what if you aren't dealing with genuine NPD? Well, if your partner is acting out of panicked protector strategies, the boundaries we set have to look fundamentally different. Sovereignty is not a wall, it is a drawbridge. Think about that for a second. You absolutely must hold the line on unacceptable behavior, sure, but you also need the flexible capacity to lower that drawbridge and maintain a connection for the person hiding underneath the armor. A permanent wall is really just avoidance dressed up in self-help language. True sovereignty means protecting yourself while keeping the door open to connection. Here is a super practical tool you can use today. When they dismiss your feelings, say exactly this: I hear that you see it differently. My experience is still valid. I am not asking you to agree with my feelings. I am asking you to acknowledge they exist. Notice how brilliantly this works. It requests a connection without demanding agreement. Demands just activate their inner protector, but requests invite the actual person. This script completely stops the argument over who is right and invites collaboration instead of defensiveness. Now, when things get heated, lower the drawbridge with this approach. Try saying, I can see this conversation is getting heated. I'm going to take 30 minutes. I'm not abandoning this conversation. I am protecting it. By saying you're taking a break to protect the conversation, you show you're prioritizing the bond, not punishing the person. You're stepping away to calm the nervous system, but you are promising to return. Clarity is kindness, even when it really doesn't feel like it in the heat of the moment. Section 5, why boundaries feel impossible. The biology of boundaries. If you're listening right now and thinking, okay, I've tried this, but I'm just so exhausted, we need to talk about why setting these boundaries feels like a literal life or death threat. Your biology is actually working against you. There are strong biological resistance factors at play here. Your attachment system equates separation to danger. Your amygdala fires up like a blaring smoke alarm because human evolution tells us that separation from a primary bond equals death. Plus, after months or even years of having your reality systematically doubted, it becomes incredibly hard to trust your own instincts. And remember, the boundary almost always triggers their worst behavior because they feel a sudden loss of control. But hey, a boundary that is never tested was never really needed. This biological resistance builds into something even stronger, which we call intermittent reinforcement. This is an unpredictable schedule of devastating lows and wonderful highs, and it acts exactly like an addictive casino slot machine on your nervous system. Your brain just keeps pulling the lever because sometimes you actually do hit the jackpot and win warmth and love. Understanding this biology doesn't necessarily make the boundary any easier, but it does remind you that you aren't weak, you're just human. Section 6, stay, leave, or co-parent, the hardest decisions. We've reached the absolute highest stakes of this explainer, navigating co-parenting and knowing exactly when it's time to finally walk away. If you share children, you simply cannot fully disconnect. So for co-parenting survival, you need to remove vagueness entirely because vagueness is the narcissist's playground. Use structured communication apps, create parenting plans that are absurdly specific, like down to the exact hour and location of drop-offs. And if regular co-parenting is just impossible, choose parallel parenting, where each household runs totally independently. Most importantly, protect your children's reality and be the steady, factual parent they need. Never use them as messengers. When it comes to the relationship itself, you really have to weigh the reality. When should you consider staying? Well, if your partner demonstrates genuine reflection outside a conflict, if they're a willing participant in therapy, if the harm is just episodic, and if there's mutual contribution to the issues. But you should absolutely consider leaving if there is violence, if your reality is entirely eroded, or if there's zero empathy ever and zero change. If you've held firm boundaries for a solid year with zero change, well, that clinical data clearly tells you it's time to pack up and leave. We're going to end on this incredibly powerful thought. Before you decide your partner's a narcissist, ask yourself this: am I trying to understand the system, or am I trying to find a villain? Are you dealing with a fixed pervasive personality disorder or a terrified person using protector strategies? Answering this honestly might just be the most important boundary you ever set. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you the clarity you need to take that next step. If you want to work on this for real, try Figlet, my AI relationship coaching app. You can start for free, no credit card needed, at figlet.empathy.com.